I'm Dr. Nina Pierpont, and I'm here today with Mark Kuhl to talk about what's been going on with his health and symptoms since the wind turbines were started up in Falmouth, here in Falmouth, Massachusetts. So Mark, could you describe what you have felt and experienced since the turbine started up, and also your experience going away and coming back to your home?
Well, the advent of it being operational, not really paying attention to the particular date, but it was during springtime, and my wife and I own 2 acres of land, all woodlands, and so I found myself, like any other year, doing yard maintenance and spring cleanup. And so at that point in time, I was coming in and complaining to her over a duration of probably a 10-day period with reoccurring headaches anytime I went out into the yard. And then so she suggested that it be allergy or pollen, because it was supposed to be a high pollen year in 2010. And so I took her advice, realizing that various stages of life you can come down and you're susceptible to allergies. I went to the doctor and was medicated. However, the medication had no effect. And then so that turned into about a month from the operational date. And then all of a sudden the notoriety of the operation of the turbine was felt in our neighborhood, and so we commenced with a neighborhood discussion thereafter. But my particular symptom is that, much like a pressure headache when one flies, whether you're descending or climbing through a pressure altitude, and you have that sensation in your eardrum where it's almost ready to pop. And so in flying, it does in fact pop, but it never does when I'm out in the yard unless I force it by doing what either typically people do, chew gum, or blow their nose holding their nose. And that relieves the pressure. Mm-hmm. And so I've labeled it as being a pressure headache. And then so in doing so, at that that initial neighborhood meeting, everybody, or many, not everybody, but many that were suffering a similar symptom identified exactly that symptom of it being, pressure driven. The other symptom would be simply just getting awoken at night. Mm-hmm. Not so much for me. My wife, however, is a little bit more sensitive than I. But during the summertime, if the wind makes us downwind, which on occasion on Cape Cod we feel a north wind, and the slider is open, it will awaken me for no apparent reason. And when this started happening last summer, was very confused about why I was being awoken, because prior to that had never been. I'm a very sound sleeper. And so it was peculiar, and then through talking to neighbors, sharing similar experiences, and my own investigative stuff on the internet, finding research such as yours, I'm saying, oh, that might be it. And the only change causing these 2 symptoms for me has been the wind turbine, because my health has remained constant, our relationship has remained constant, my food intake, my weight, everything has been static, with the exception of one thing, and that being the wind turbine. Now, you asked me, how do I curtail these symptoms? Well, my case would be either closing the slider on those evenings that I leave it open, or exiting the property or removing myself to inside my house, typically downstairs in my basement, is where I find a little solitude away from the pressure headaches. So I need some sort of barrier between what that's emitting and relief, per se. So that's basically it.
So have you had times when you've spent time away from home, or when you go to work? That would be a number of hours away from home. What about any trips away, weekends away?
We've found it that it's necessary to basically escape for a while. So last year, our accountant told us that, my, you've taken an extraordinary amount of trips, because everything we keep track of. And it's mostly been because we need the relief, because obviously the predominant wind during the wintertime puts us downwind. And when the fierce nor'easters blow out of the over Cape Cod Bay, there's only so much you can tolerate, at least our sensitivities will allow.
So you get your symptoms when the wind is out of the north or the northeast?
The quadrants are northwest, north to northeast.
Okay.
So anytime, that's when my symptoms are imposed on me. So.
Is this from the Turbine 1, the town turbine?
Yes, the town turbine.
So how did it affect you when they put in the limit where it shuts off at 23
It was
miles
it
per hour?
was the onset of the symptom was the same, and the symptom was the same. However, at a higher generated, I guess, energy production, and the revolutions must be quicker, and I'm not sure the dynamic of all this, but the onset above 23 miles an hour, when I used to work out in the yard and shovel snow, to say during the wintertime, the onset of that, it was reduced. Instead of taking 20 minutes to actually feel the sensation of the headache, the pressure headache, then it took 3 minutes. So there's some correlative feature having to do with, whether it ramps up and how fast it's going, or if it's just turning at. And I've written a log at about 12 to 13 mile an hour, actually 11 to 13 mile an hour, I've narrowed it down. That's when all of a sudden the onset is, and after about 20 minutes, I'll have the full-blown pressure headache.
Or any wind speed above that?
A wind speed above that would make that 20 minutes
Shorter.
into 10.
Now, when you go in your basement, do you get complete relief or partial relief?
Actually, that's another thing that I've noticed. It is full relief, but it takes a little bit of time. It's almost like a ramping down.
Like time on order of minutes, hours?
Yeah, minutes.
Okay.
I can be in there, and I would say, just as a matter of what I've written down, about 15 minutes will make everything subside, and I'll return to normal.
So the pressure in your ears, that will go away, the headache will go away?
That's only if I can relieve that pressure. However, the headache remains.
Okay.
You can relieve if I'm outside. Now, once I'm inside, after relieving the pressure, because that is so annoying to have your ears almost pop, but they're not. So if I go indoors into the basement with that sensation and leave it, it'll take 15 minutes before all of a sudden my equilibrium or the pressure balance is returned. And so, so it's about a 15-minute period. Once I get the obstruction in front or in between myself and the source of the pressure, that I think the source of the pressure is.
But it has to be, you have to be down in the basement, it can't just be inside.
Well, if I'm on the far side of the house, the same effect is there. But I've not been one to really totally write down everything. All I know is my best relief is, again, with a cinder block wall in between myself and the turbine. Now upstairs, our master bedroom happens to be 1,629 feet away from the turbine.
Mm-hmm.
If the slider's left open, it's exactly the same as if I were to be outside.
Okay.
And the only variable there would be how fast the turbine is rotating, or the wind's pushing the turbine.
Okay.
Close the slider, then 15 minutes later, I'm back to normal.
What's your history before this in terms of headaches? Like, what's been your headache pattern in your life?
I've never, with the exception of after too much alcohol intake, I've never been prone to any headaches whatsoever.
Okay. So this is very unusual.
Oh, it's very unusual. That's why I brought it in. I typically don't complain,
Mm-hmm.
but I thought it was so unique that it should happen over a duration of 10 days that I brought my wife into the conversation. I said, man, am I getting we know people that's had brain cancer or brain
Mm-hmm.
tumors. And it's like, that's what was scary. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, I better bring her into this. Maybe she has a suggestion that I should be concerned with and
Mm-hmm.
follow up on. And then so, she tried to calm me and say, I think it's just pollen.
Mm.
So we'll go from there, start little and move on.
Mm-hmm.
Who knew it was going to grow into this?
Mm-hmm. And when you go away from home, you don't have any headaches?
Nothing.
Okay. Do you have any vertigo or dizziness symptoms?
No. However, what you mentioned and what I've read about the cognitive aspect of it, I'm an air traffic controller,
Mm-hmm.
have been for 32 years.
Mm-hmm.
And there has been a feeling, and it's just an opinion of mine, and it
Mm-hmm.
hasn't been proven or otherwise. However, I do have friends whom I work with that said that my air traffic ability they're starting to watch me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm having to be babysat
Mm-hmm.
on position. So that's concerning. I'm thinking maybe I'm getting older. 32 years in the game it's a young man's game.
Mm-hmm.
But they did say in such a short amount of time, people normally don't lose it or not. I haven't lost it, but they don't fall off as
Mm-hmm.
far as their proficiency, as
Mm-hmm.
far as I have. So, knowing this, hearing it from friends, have brought that particular aspect, my attention span, my ability to analyze three-dimensionally and everything I do on the radar system to my flight surgeon, who once a year, air traffic controllers are mandated to go see flight surgeons.
So you brought that aspect to his attention as
yes,
well?
I did. And he quantifies it as, he has to, but you haven't had any crashes or close calls or anything like that, so maybe it's just a phase you're going through. That wasn't his words, but that's the feeling of what was implied.
Mm-hmm.
And so until something happens, then we'll take a look at it then.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Can you talk more about your sleep? In terms of, especially too, do you feel rested when you wake up in the morning?
On those occasions when the sliders are left open and I'm awoken because of, if it's a windy night and it's really going, it's a thumping and it's hard to sleep next to a dryer with shoes in it, as it turns. And that's basically how I've labeled it or identified it.
Mm-hmm.
The pressure aspect of it is another contributing factor. But
that sensation of pressure
yes.
when you wake up in your ears?
Yes. And that's, like I said, only if the slider's left open. And
headache when you wake up?
Yes.
Any feeling of being startled awake when you wake up? Or?
No, not particularly. The sensation, initially when it started happening, I recall, I was trying to figure out why I would wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm thinking, then I always project the worst, and it's like, oh, somebody's in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I'd get up to check on the dogs. Didn't hear any dogs barking.
Mm-hmm.
Got two typically good signals as far as their warning capability. But nothing like that, but I just, there was something a little aloof that I couldn't put my finger on, so I would get up and walk around the house and see what was going on. But then as things were talked about in the neighborhood, it's like, then the subsequent awakings at night would, the first inkling would be that damn turbine. So it was a matter of frustration rather than being startled or anything. I'd wake up and I'm going, that son of a gun. Here we go again.
How many nights would you estimate this is happening to you, per week or per month, that you have poor sleep?
I would guesstimate, and it's all dictated by the variations of the wind and the wind direction for us, especially during the summertime. But during the summertime, I would venture a guess of probably at least a dozen times so far this past summer. I'd have to check my logbook as to last summer.
To over, say, June, July, and August?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But once you move into the seasonal windy aspects of Cape Cod, then the frequency quadruples as far as awakenings and pressure headaches.
So that was your experience last winter and fall?
That's I'm not looking forward to this fall and winter.
So what you just said was in 3 months about 12 times in the summer, that's about once a week. So if you're talking in the fall and winter, that quadrupling, you're talking about 4 times a week.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
so
it's
more
it's
than
not
half
it's
the
not
nights.
yeah it's not incomprehensible to be awoken 3 to 4 times a week. I mean, at least.
Okay. And how do you feel on those mornings or the next day?
Well, knowing that, and that was one of the reasons I brought it to the attention of the flight surgeon, was here you have a catalyst for keeping me up. And what it's preventing me from doing is getting the necessary sleep to do my job. And so I feel groggy. Might be a component of my lack of attention span and my lack of proficiency that all my friends at work are commenting on. But in such a short time, and it happened to be triggered shortly after the turbine went operational, because before that everybody said Mark Kulkin, he's a top performer. If you want know how to work airplanes, watch him. Well, I don't know if that's the case anymore.
How old are you?
I'm 52.
Okay. And you said you've been doing the air traffic control for 32 years?
32 years.
Since you were 20?
Yep.
Wow.
Long time.
Yeah. Now, have you noticed anything with your heartbeat?
No, I don't believe so.
Any issues with your blood pressure?
No, that's fine. Everything, like I said, it's everything's static. The only variable, and like I said, I maintain a annual flight physical as well as my personal doctor's physical, EKGs and all that. But everything's up and up.
So no chronic diseases, no history of migraine. Any history of being seasick or car sick when you were young?
No. I spent 11 years in the Navy and I never ever got seasick once.
Right. Do you get any tinnitus or ringing in your ears?
No.
And not in the past either?
No.
More than just really mild stuff. What did you think about the turbines before they started up?
I thought it was a good means for the town, for a municipality to reduce or prevent the escalation of property tax. If they're going to use that energy, be thrown back out on the grid and be compensated, one for one by the utility to give a benefit to the town, that's going to hold my property tax in check. First and foremost, that's what I'm thinking. Secondly, I'm saying, I'm following kind of casually the climate, global warming issue. I'm going, well, if it does what they purport it to do, I'm for it. you know. And so, but just like I had made mention, you know, ever since it turned on, they kind of sold us a bad bill of goods because they, in the feasibility study, said the impact of visual, and though I don't care about how it looks, but the effects, the noise effects and the vibratory effects would be minimal. Well, you know, that's obviously not the case.
Do you have any sensations of pressure or vibration other places in your body, or that you pick up or detect?
I don't pick up or detect anything but the aggravation in the ears and in the head and the headache.
How about your sense of energy and motivation? You sort of get up and go to do things?
It was, I think, causal effect of not getting the deep sleep that I was accustomed to. And so, depending on the season, especially, the frequency of being awoken during the wintertime because of the wind and because of us being put in a downwind position. I attributed it to, and I do still, my tiredness was correlated to me not getting the peaceful sleep, the restful sleep that I was, you know, accustomed to.
So has your energy and motivation been better this summer?
Well, during the summertime, it, for the most part, always does come back.
Yeah.
The times out in the yard when the wind turns and I get headaches, it just turns into more frustration than anything else, knowing that, well, the wind's not going to stay, I mean, hopefully, not going to stay out of the north quadrants that much longer, maybe a day or two.
Yeah.
And so, okay, that's what I have to look forward to. But during the wintertime, that goes away.
What about your mood? Anger, depression?
More frustration, angry, short-tempered. Typically, I'm more analytical, more methodical. I think before I speak. When I'm aggravated, loss of sleep, frustrated, I've been told that not only at work but at home, I've been one to just, you know, fly off. So that's not me.
What about, and this is really the final question, about the cost to you? The cost in terms of time, in terms of finances? Just what is this costing you? I mean, the turbines come in saying we're going to save our citizens money and taxes. We're going to help prevent large-scale costs to the whole population in the world. But what about the costs to you personally? How would you estimate those?
Well, the cost to me personally, I can put in perspective of I care mostly about my wife and my family that have to endure various degrees of negative impact that the town said and the consultant said that weren't going to be there. So the principle of being lied to is a cost that right now we're having to endure, but we're trying to enlighten. The cost that really scares me is if on a particular day I've lost sleep because of the wind turbine and I go into work and I get two planes either too close or too close for comfort. Beyond being a stressful, an already stressful location as air traffic can be. I don't want to have to tell that family the reason for their family member's loss is because of the wind turbine, because it prevented me from getting a sound sleep. So that's the cost that I'm truly concerned about.
If you decided to move because of this, what would be the cost to you?
Well, I'm sure there'd be, from all reports, there would be a negative impact as to the equity that we could get out of the house. But more importantly, we've been there for 18 years, and it's surrounded by wildlife conservation, and we've moved there, and we plan to die there.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not going to be the case now, unless things change.
Yeah.
And everybody's hopeful it will.
Yeah.
So that's that.